Did you use that $916 million loss to avoid paying personal federal income taxes?
Of course I do. Of course I do. And so do all of her donors, or most of her donors. I know many of her donors. Her donors took massive tax write-offs.
So have you not paid personal federal income tax?
A lot of my write-off was depreciation and other things that Hillary, as a senator, allowed.
But according to the Government Accountability Office, some of the most profitable U.S. companies pay half of that rate. Well, they did in 2010. We're talking about companies like Walmart, Apple, and Google, who are finding loopholes in the system to avoid paying their required tax rate.
If you're a corporation, it turns out that huge profits does not necessarily lead to huge taxes. In fact, the 7 of the 30 largest corporations paid more to their CEOs than they did in federal taxes in the last span of time that was analyzed. 7 companies, the ones I mentioned, Boeing, Ford, Chevron, Citigroup, Verizon, JP Morgan Chase, and General Motors, reported a tax rate of negative 2.5%, despite claiming more than $74 billion in combined pre-tax profits.
Or maybe he doesn't want the American people, all of you watching tonight, to know that he's paid nothing in federal taxes, because the only years that anybody's ever seen were a couple of years when he had to turn them over to state authorities when he was trying to get a casino license, and they showed he didn't pay any federal income tax. So
that makes me smart.
If you say to an executive, hey, you can give campaign donations and then get 100 times the return, maybe 1,000 times the return from the government, well, wouldn't you do it?
Hi, I'm Sandy Botkin, CPA, tax attorney, and former trainer of IRS attorneys nationwide. And we're going to be talking about why you'd be brain dead not to have a legitimate home-based business. You know, what's interesting is that we have 2 tax systems in this country. And when I say that, most people think, sure, one for the rich, one for the poor. And I bet you thought that. Nope. You're close, though. There's one to make you poor, and there's one to make you rich. The one to make you poor is designed for employees, for the working stiffs, because they're taxed on $1, and they really don't get a lot of deductions. But if you are self-employed, you get everything that an employee gets, and you can write off part of your house, your spouse, the equivalent of your kids' education and weddings. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. You can set up a pension that I promise you makes any government pension look small by comparison. You can set up a home office, which is worth thousands. And I'm going to say something that's going to sound funny, but the government is the biggest bookie in North America. Why? Because they want to subsidize you while you're building your business so that you can pay them for the rest of your life. And the way they do that is that they will subsidize your losses. If you have a loss, you can use that against any form of income you have. Interest, dividends, wages, pensions, anything.
Let's just jump right into it. Why are we seeing these major differences in the federal tax rate of 35% and the effective rate for most corporations?
Well, there's a whole set of loopholes that these companies have become absolutely expert at taking advantage of. For example, General Electric often pays no taxes, one of the most profitable companies in the country. Often they're able to find ways to hide their profits and end up paying little or no taxes. One of the main ones is simply, as long as you keep profits overseas, you don't have to pay tax on that. And many companies have taken advantage of that to keep much of their profits overseas.
So let's take an example. Let's say you make $50,000 at a job, you have a home-based business that just generated a $10,000 loss, you only pay taxes on $40,000, the net. Let's say you're a single parent and the loss exceeds your whole income for the year. You can carry back all business losses 2 years and get a refund from the federal and state government for the last 2 years of taxes that you paid. You actually get a check. Canadians can carry back their losses 3 years. They get a little bit of better benefits. Or you can carry forward all business losses up to 20 years and offset the next 20 years of earnings. You never lose a properly documented business deduction as long as you're running your business like a business. So having a side business is really critical in making your life a lot less taxing.
I understand the tax laws better than almost anyone. As a businessman and real estate developer, I have legally used the tax laws to my benefit and to the benefit of my company, my investors, and my employees. I mean, honestly, I have brilliantly used those laws. I have often said on the campaign trail that I have a fiduciary responsibility to pay no more tax than is legally required, like anybody else. Or, put another way, to pay as little tax as legally possible.
Also, one of their standard tricks, Apple's done this with great success. They declare taxes in tax havens. So Ireland, you see, Apple makes a huge share of their profit in Ireland. They don't actually make that much in Ireland, but that's where they declare their profit. It's very difficult for the IRS to keep track of that. So there's a large number of tax loopholes that allow them to evade much of their tax obligation.
I was able to use the tax laws of this country and my business acumen to dig out of the real estate mess. You would call it a depression, when few others were able to do what I did.
This is when they say go to school and get a job, they're telling you come here or here. That was poor dad. Rich dad said come over here or come over here. Now, there's a reason for that. Employees pay about 50% in tax. So when you say to a kid, go to school and get a job, they're going to pay 50% of what they earn to the government. Not that smart. So, if S stands for smart, like doctors and lawyers and accountants, self-employed, they really get screwed. 60%. So all your A students out there, congratulations.
A lot of people might say, well, gee, if there wasn't an income tax, what would happen to education? They don't understand that education is paid for the most part, out of state and local taxes, your property tax. People might say, well, how are we going to build and maintain our highways? If there's no money coming into the government, we need our highways. There is a tax on every gallon of gasoline that people buy. Proceeds from the income tax do not pay for highway construction. The amount of money that we spend on defense is exactly equal to the amount of corporate income tax, which is quite legal and quite constitutional.
A lot of this is covered in A students, work for B students. And B students pay 20%. Why? Because B quadrant produces jobs. And what the government wants are more people who can create jobs. Maybe not in this country, but in my country, big problem. So we're tax incentivized. The more jobs we create, the less tax we pay. Who pays the tax? These guys. No, it's true. Like, these guys, B quadrant means you have over 500 employees. If you have over 500 employees, different states in America will come to you, which you might move into our state, we'll give you tax breaks. The reason they want you to move they want me to move from Arizona, where I live now, to California, is because I'll create jobs. That's the reason. So we get tax breaks. These guys get screwed. They pay higher taxes here. And the I quadrant pays 0. Proven there's a God. Now there's one condition. To get 0% tax, you need a team. You can't just do it by yourself. You have to have accountants, attorneys, and real estate guys. You have to have bankers on your side. So that's why having a team is important. Just recently, I made several $1 million last month, tax-free, legally. I say that because, and that's what you'll learn in jail. I say that because, legally, because you don't have to be a crook to don't pay tax. You have to be smart. The government wants you to pay no tax. Taxes are incentives. The reason I pay no taxes is because, like I said, I have 4 houses I live in, but 5,000 houses I rent out. By me providing housing, I pay 0 tax, because that's what the government wants me to do.
They're calling us tax cheats, they're calling us fanatics, they're calling us weirdos. I don't care what you call me, but I have one question. Where is the law? Show me the law.